We have race 253, the under-21 women's pair A final. In lane 1, Adelaide Rowing Club, Zoe Malloy and Jessie Malloy. Lane 2, Mercantile, Annie Anazakis and Georgie Gleeson. Lane 3, WA Rowing Club, Gabby Morris and Georgia Patton. Lane 4, Mercantile, Christy Green and Ellie Tomanovitz. Lane 5, UTS. Lane 6, Melbourne University. Lane 7, WA Rowing Club and Lane 8, Buckingham.
At a final of the under-21 women's pair is just through the 500 metre mark, being led by the UTS combination of Reed and Wainwright over on lane 5. In the meantime, the concluding stages right in front of us of the B final of the same event, and it is Fremantle's Anna Gunsberg and Eliza Kelly, the comfortable race leaders from the Sydney Rowing Club. Alongside them there, Lara Campbell and Tessa Mappelbeck, just the two starters, it seems, in the B final of the under-21 women's coxswain pair. And as they approach the finish line, it will be Fremantle comfortably from Sydney in that race. But back up the course where the A final is approaching the halfway mark. It was the University of Technology Sydney Grace Reed and Lara Wainwright who led the race over the opening 500 metres, sitting in lane 5 as one of the two semi-final winners. Just ahead of the West Australian Rowing Club and two Mercantile combinations sitting in 3rd and 4th place. As these crews still with a little bit over 1,000 metres to row in this A final of the under-21 women's coxswain pair. The defending champions, the Mercantile Rowing Club, have two crews in this race. Lane 4, Kirsty Green and Ellie Tomanovitz, and Lane 2, Annie Anazakis and Georgia Gleeson. But it's still the University of Technology Sydney who lead this race through the 1,000 metres now in 3:52.34. And 1.74 seconds they have over the first of two West Australian Rowing Club combinations, actually sitting in 2nd and 3rd position ahead of those two Mercantile crews. So UTS first. West Australian Rowing Club lane 3 would be in 2nd place, Gabby Morris and Georgia Patton. And they've got about 2.5 seconds on their clubmates over in lane 7. West Australian Rowing Club, Kira Vermeersch and Sienna Zaman. Kira, of course, the sister of Hannah Vermeersch, will race in a few races' time in the Open Women's Single Scull as well. Behind those two West Australian crews, currently in the silver and bronze medal positions, we have the two crews from Mercantile. Lane 2 was in 4th place, Anazakis and Gleeson, ahead of the lane 4 combination of Green and Tomanovitz. And then behind them we had Buckingham, lane 8, Lauren Conway and Romy Keppel, ahead of Melbourne University. In lane 6, Helena Malayo and Samantha Cadday. And Adelaide over in lane 1, Zoe and Jessie Malloy on the far side of the course. But a good race between our leading few crews. The University of Technology Sydney certainly led this race right from the first timing check. Grace Reed and Lara Wainwright, coached by David Geely and Tim McLaren here in Sydney. And they do look there on lane 5 to be extending their lead over the rest of the field, but the chase is coming from several different places on the course, not just the centre lanes in this race. Over in lane 3, that West Australian Rowing Club combination, and on lane 7 this side as well, also from the West Australian Rowing Club. Those two pairs looking to sit still in 2nd and 3rd, and then those two crews from the Mercantile Rowing Club still in contention there as well. So it is UTS first through 1500, 5:52.23 their time, and just over 3 seconds. So a bit over a boat length their lead from the West Australian Rowing Club, or the first of those two crews. It is lane 3 in second place, Gabby Morris and Georgia Patton of the West Australian Rowing Club, and then Mercantile lane 2, Annie Anazakis and Georgie Gleeson, who've moved up to be in third spot, ahead of the second West Australian combination, Vermeersch and Zamin in fourth place, and the second Mercantile crew, Green and Tomanovitz, currently back in fifth. Then Buckingham, Melbourne University, and also the Adelaide Rowing Club over on the far side of the course. But just under 250 metres to row now for our leading crew, and it is Grace Reed and Lara Wainwright who've led this race from the beginning, being chased home by a pair of crews from the West Australian Rowing Club and a pair of crews from Mercantile as well. The best of those chasers still looks to be lane 3, Gabby Morris and Georgia Patton, coached by Joe Tamiji and Chris Holliday at the West Australian Rowing Club. And that crew does look to have made a little bit of a dent in the lead of the UTS crew, but they still remain fairly comfortably clear by a length or so here at this stage of the race, with just over 100 metres to race. And the UTS crew start to lift up in these closing strokes. The West Australians lane 3 certainly closing on them with a good finish here and a good race for third as well. Mercantile the far side, the West Australian Rowing Club on this side, and Mercantile again there in the centre of the course. But it is the University of Technology Sydney, Grace Reed and Lara Wainwright. Just a few strokes to go for them now, with a Clearwater lead over the field, and it will be UTS first place in the under-21 women's coxless pair. Almost 2 lengths they win it by on the line. The West Australian Rowing Club lane 3 will take out second place, and Mercantile lane 2 will get the bronze medal. Next home lane 7, also the West Australian Rowing Club. Mercantile second crew in lane 4 will take out fifth spot. And the remaining pairs still to come home. Lane 8 will be next. Buckingham in 6th place, followed by Melbourne Uni in 7th, and Adelaide in 8th place over on the far side of the course in the A final of the under-21 women's coxless pair.
And the unofficial result for race 253, the under-21 women's pair A final. First, UTS. Second, Western Australian Rowing Club. Third, Mercantile. Fourth, Western Australian Rowing Club. Fifth, Mercantile. Sixth, Buckingham. Seventh, Melbourne University. And eighth, Adelaide Rowing Club. The presentation of the medals for the under-23 men's coxless pair champion of Australia. The medals will be presented by Michael Eastoff, life member of Rowing Australia. In third place and bronze medalists, Sydney University. Andrew Judge and Jacob Bicknell, coached by Donald McLaughlin. And second place, and our silver medalists, University of Queensland and QAS, Adam Backer and Harley Moore, coached by Benjamin Southwell. And our gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017 Mossman Mercantile Composite, Liam Donald and Robert Black, coached by Simon Gadsden. And another A final on the course, the under-21 men's coxless pair, race 255. Lane 1, Sydney. Lane 2, UTS. Lane 3, Mercantile. Lane 4, Sydney University. Lane 5, UTS. Lane 6, Adelaide and South Australian Institute of Sport. Lane 7, Mercantile. Lane 8, Mercantile.
And as we join that race, we've just seen the end of the rollover in the B final of the under-21 men's coxless pair, Matthew Nielsen and Nicholas Ems, coached by Bretton Terrell for the Adelaide University Boat Club, the only contestant in the B final, so they will officially be ranked 9th in the event. The top 8 positions about to be sorted out further down the course in the A final now of the under-21 men's coxless pair. And it was the University of Technology Sydney leading in lane 5 through the early stages of this race. They're well through the 500-metre mark now and approaching halfway. The crew is just starting to emerge into closer view through the rain down the course. But it is still, it seems, that combination from UTS on lane 5, Hugh Courts and Zach Von Appen, coached by Tim McLaren and John Smythe, who were first through the 1,000-metre mark, but only just. Sydney University over in lane 4 have moved up a couple of spots in the second 500 metres, and they now are sitting in second spot. Lachlan Miles and Jack O'Brien, coached by Dustin Butler and Donald McLaughlin. Just less than half a second between those two crews as they went through the halfway mark. And then a pair of crews from Mercantile on opposite sides of the course. Mercantile lane 8 would be in third. Lennart Schiesvold and Jack Robertson, coached by John Saunders. And also then Mercantile lane 3, Alexander Clark and Benjamin Canham. Two of these, in fact, 3 Mercantile crews in the race. The other one on lane 7, a little bit back at this stage, it was UTS with their second crew in 5th place. That's UTS lane 2, Whitehead and Finlayson, ahead of Adelaide, Deans and Grant in 6th place. Sydney, Boltman and O'Connell in 7th, and Mercantile, May and Wolf, the third of the Mercantile crews, racing in lane 7, back in 8th spot. But not a great deal between any of those few crews at the back of the field, but the medalists at this stage separated by a length or so from the remaining 5 crews. Still the University of Technology Sydney from Sydney University, and then Mercantile lane 8 at this stage sitting up in the bronze medal spot, but certainly plenty of challenges still remaining over the closing strikes of this race as they approach now the 1,500 metre mark in this A final of the under-21 men's coxless pair. The UTS crew lane 5 and Sydney Uni beside them lane 4 are the first ones through the 1,500 metre mark, and in fact they've taken almost a boat length lead now. Sydney Uni 5:05.87 their time at the 1,500 metre mark, and 1.80 it is between them and the early race leaders from UTS in lane 5. So our 2 semi-final winners showing out fairly comfortably in front now, but a change in the order. Sydney Uni first, UTS second, and just over 4.5 seconds back to the new crew holding down the bronze medal would be Adelaide and the South Australian Sports Institute lane 6. That's the combination of Jack Deans and Kane Grant, coached by Jason Lane, have moved up narrowly into third ahead of Mercantile. It's Mercantile lane 3 there, currently sitting in 4th place. The other Mercantile crew. Lane 8 a couple of spots further back at this stage, but still certainly in contention for the medals. Mercantile, Clark and Canham in lane 3. Then UTS, Whitehead and Finlayson in 2. And Mercantile, Sheesvol and Robertson on this side of the course with some work to do now. But a good race between our leading 2 lanes. It still is Sydney University, Lachlan Miles and Jack O'Brien holding off the UTS combination of Hugh Courts and Zach Von Appen. And a very good race for third. Still Adelaide, lane 6. Jack Deans and Kane Grant would be there just ahead of Mercantile in 3. UTS again, they're in lane 2. Those 3 lined up across the course along with Mercantile over on this side as well. But Sydney University holding on by a length or so now. Lachlan Miles and Jack O'Brien looking good to take out the A final of the under-21 men's coxless pair. They approach the line now, clear by just over a length, and Sydney University will win it. Sydney Uni ahead of UTS in second place. Very close for the bronze medal. Probably Adelaide on this side, just ahead of Mercantile in 3. UTS in 2. Mercantile in 8 in quick succession across the line. Then Mercantile lane 7. And also Sydney Rowing Club across in lane 1.
So the unofficial results for race 255, the under-21 men's pair A final. First, Sydney University. Second, UTS. Third, Adelaide Sassy. Fourth, Mercantile. Fifth, UTS. Sixth, Mercantile. Seventh, Mercantile. Eighth, Sydney. The presentations of the medals for the under-21 Women's Coxless Pair Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Michael Eastoff, life member of Rowing Australia. Third place and bronze medalists, Mercantile Rowing Club. Annie Anazakis and Georgie Gleeson, coached by Bridget Carlisle. Second place and our silver medalists, West Australian Rowing Club. Gabby Morris and Georgia Patton, coached by Joseph Tamiji and Chris Holliday. And our gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017, UTS Rowing Club. Grace Reid and Lara Rainwright, coaches David Jelly and Tim McLaren. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists. Race 257, the Open Women's Single Scull A Final. Lane 1, Hannah Vermeesh. Lane 2, Aline Crowley. Lane 3, Genevieve Horton. Lane 4, Maddie Edmonds. Lane 5, Olympia Aldersey. Lane 6, Fiona Ewing. Lane 7, Madeline Coonan. And Lane 8, Lucy Steffen.
And they've just gone, or they're approaching, in fact, the first 500 metre mark of one of the big races of the 2017 Aon Sydney International Rowing Regatta, the A final of the Open Women's Single Scull. A star-studded field here with several Olympians and several members of the 2017 Australian rowing team as well. And leading through the 1500 metre mark, it is one of the women selected in the women's sculling squad for the 2017 season, and Genevieve Horton from the Sydney University, the race leader by a very narrow margin, just 0.21 of a second. The Maddie Edmonds from the Commercial Rowing Club, and Olympia Aldersey there as well for the Adelaide Rowing Club. So those top three through the early stages, all members of the women's sculling squad for this season's World Cup regattas, and all representing Australia in the Rio Olympics last year as well. Just about to see the concluding stages of the B final in front of us here too in the Open Women's Single Scull. Swan River's Adriana Maruli has led this race comfortably for quite some time, had a lead of well over 12 seconds with 500 to race, and has continued that now. So it will easily be Adriana Maruli from Swan River Lane 5 ahead of the two bank scullers, Thea Adamson Lane 4, Alex Conway Lane 6, and the Fremantle sculler, Caitlin McPhail, there in 4th spot. But certainly Adriana Maruli will be the comfortable winner in a few strokes' time in the B final of the Open Women's Single Scull. We look back down the course. Our A finalists are approaching half distance, and you would expect a great race between especially these four scullers in the centre lanes. Genevieve Horton in 3, Maddie Edmonds in 4, Olympia Aldersey in 5, Fiona Ewing in 6. All four of those women have been selected in the women's sculling squad that will eventually form a double scull and a quad scull to race for Australia in the Poznan and Lucerne World Cup regattas later on this year. And then from then, final selections to be made for the World Championship. So through the halfway mark, we can see it is now once again one of the Queensland athletes who's taken the lead here. Maddie Edmonds from the Commercial Rowing Club and the National Training Centre, who had just under a boat length lead there at halfway now, 3:52.04 the time for Maddie Edmonds, ahead of Olympia Aldersey then from Adelaide in second place. Our early race leader was Genevieve Horton, now back by a further second or so in third position. And Madeline Coonan from the Toowong Rowing Club in Brisbane over in lane 7 had a strong second quarter of the race and is up into 4th place now, ahead of Fiona Ewing from Sydney University, then Lucy Steffen from Melbourne Uni, Swan River's Eileen Crowley, and the West Australian Rowing Club's Hannah Vermeesh, a 2012 Olympian, of course, from the women's 8. And we saw her sister row a few races ago, just missing a medal in the under-21 women's coxless pair. But it is Maddie Edmonds from the Commercial Rowing Club looking to go one better this year around. She was second a year ago on this race to fellow Queenslander, in fact, fellow St Margaret's old girl, Sally Keogh, who's taking this year off rowing. But Maddie Edmonds certainly looking to be out by a length or so at this stage as these crews approach the final 500 metres, leading from Olympia Aldersey and Genevieve Horton. So approaching the 1,500 metre mark, Maddie Edmonds from Commercial in the National Training Centre. She's gone through with over a boat length lead now, 5:50.68 the time for Edmonds to 1,500. Olympia Aldersea alongside her there in second place, 3.46 seconds the margin as those two crossed into the final quarter of the race. And then back to Genevieve Horton, who led the race narrowly after 500 metres, now back in third place, 2.8 seconds further back. And Madeline Coonan from Toowong over in lane 7, hanging on to fourth place at this stage, just under 2 seconds off a medal position. Then Fiona Ewing in fifth place, Lucy Stephan in sixth, Hannah Vermeersch up into seventh, and Eileen Crowley over in lane 2, back in eighth place at this stage. But we're into the final 300 or so metres now of this open women's single scull. And Maddie Edmonds from the Commercial Rowing Club in Queensland with a clear water lead over the rest of the field. Still giving chase is Olympia Aldersea, a fellow Rio Olympian. And she would sit probably a length and a half or 2 lengths back at this stage. And then over in lane 3, the Sydney University sculler, Genevieve Horton, of course, from the double scull at last year's Olympics as well, along with Sally Keogh, who won this race last year. But it's Maddie Edmonds from Commercial now in front with less than a couple of 100 metres to go. She leads it still by Clearwater over the lane 5 sculler, Olympia Aldersea. And Genevieve Horton there in lane 3. They look to be our medalists, although the Toowong sculler, Madeline Coonan, having a strong finish to this race as well, ahead of Fiona Ewing from Sydney Uni, Lucy Stephan, Hannah Vermeersch, and Eileen Crowley. But still it is Maddie Edmonds from Commercial. The margin has been closed a bit by Olympia Aldersea here in the closing strokes, but Edmonds looks to be doing enough. She's got 5 or 6 strokes to go and a boat length to play with, and Maddie Edmonds from Commercial comes up to the finish line, and she'll go across and win the open women's single scull. Maddie Edmonds first, Olympia Aldersea second, third place to Genevieve Horton. A great race between those three all the way down the course, and it will be the Toowong sculler in lane 7. Madeline Coonan next across the line, followed on lane 6 by the sculler from Sydney Uni, Fiona Ewing. Then it will be lane 8, it looks like, from Melbourne Uni, Lucy Stephan, just ahead of Eileen Crowley and Hannah Vermeersch.
The unofficial results of the Open Women's Single Scull Race 257A final. First, Maddie Edmonds. Second, Olympia Aldersea. Third, Genevieve Horton. Fourth, Madeline Coonan. Fifth, Fiona Ewing. Sixth, Lucy Stephan. Seventh, Eileen Crowley. And eighth, Hannah Vermeersch. The presentation of medals for the Under-21 Men's Coxless Pair Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Michael Eastoff, Life Member of Rowing Australia. Third place and our bronze medalists, Adelaide Rowing Club and South Australian Sports Institute, Jack Deans and Kane Grant, coached by Jason Lane. In second place, and our silver medalists, UTS Rowing Club, coached by Hugh Courts stroke Zach Von Appen, coaches Tim McLaren and John Smythe. Our gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017 Sydney University, Lachlan Miles and Jack O'Brien. Coaches Dustin Butler and Donald McLaughlin. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists. We have the start of race 259, the Open Men's Singles Scull A Final. Lane 1, Spencer Turren. Lane 2, Samuel Volker. Lane 3, Wilson Muir. Lane 4, Cameron Girdleston. Lane 5, Christopher Hayes. Lane 6, Jack Hargraves. Lane 7, Hamish Playfair. And Lane 8, Connor Clark.
And before we go to that race, approaching halfway, just a very close finish there in the B final of the Open Men's Singles Scull. Unofficially, Finian Crowley from Swan River ahead of Jack Kelly from Banks and Isaac Smith from Melbourne University. But now just through halfway in the A final of the Open Men's Singles Scull. And it continues to be Spencer Turren, the race leader, right across on the outside of the course in lane 1. Spencer Turren from the Sydney Rowing Club and the National Training Centre, a member of the men's 4 that will race for Australia in the Lucerne and Poznan World Cup regattas later on this year. He had a narrow lead at the 500-metre mark. It's now out to 1.41 seconds at halfway. So Spencer Turren, our race leader from the defending champion, Cameron Girdlestone there in the centre of the course in lane 4, coached by Donald McLaughlin at the Sydney University Boat Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. So they are the top 2 at this stage. And then Hamish Playfair, the men's sculling reserve at this stage in the Australian squad from the University of Technology, Sydney, over on this side of the course, lane 7, would be sitting in 3rd place, a further 2 seconds back from our leading pair at this stage. Behind them, Wilson Muir from Huon, Jack Hargraves from Sydney University, Samuel Volker from Buckingham, Christopher Hayes from Swan River, and also Connor Clark from UTS. But Spencer Turren on the far side of the course, only into the final just by virtue of a 4th place in his semi-final, but certainly giving the field plenty to think about now as they approach the 1,500-metre mark. Spencer Turren there over in lane 1, and Cameron Girdlestone in the centre of the course won this race a year ago, and certainly very, very much in contention here to go back-to-back on the Sydney International Regatta Centre. But through the 1,500-metre mark, it is still Spencer Turren giving the field something to chase. Over there in lane 1, he's coached by Donovan Seck, Jason Baker, and Lachlan Carter, and he leads this field by a neat boat length. It would be Girdlestone in second place, 2.64 seconds further back, and our race leader has gone up to 34 strokes per minute now, so he's really giving the field something to chase now as they're well inside this final 500 metres. Girdlestone chasing on 33 strokes per minute, and he sits just ahead of Hamish Playfair in third place on this side of the course, lane 7. So they're spread out far and wide now in the closing strokes of the A final of the Open Men's Singles Scull. Our defending champion sits in lane 4, but he's got some work to do. Spencer Turren and Hamish Playfair both chasing hard as well. Also, Jack Hargraves, another member of the Australian men's forward, be up there in 4th or 5th place, along with Wilson Muir, the sculler from Huon there in lane 4, another well-placed roller from the semi-finals yesterday, but still it is Spencer Turren over on the far side of the course. A really good chase coming from Hamish Playfair too, of the University of Technology Sydney over this side. Hamish coached by Tim McLaren and John Smythe, and he's certainly comfortably clear in second place, and moving up on our race leader Spencer Turren, who jumped out from the start, has led pretty much from the jump, but is being chased now by Hamish Playfair, and Cameron Girdlestone gets his boat moving again now too, back in third place, but there's not much racing left in this one. The Sydney Rowing Club on the far side, Spencer Turren from Hamish Playfair of UTS on this side of the course, and Cameron Girdlestone from Sydney University coming home quickly in the inside lane, but Spencer Turren will lead from start to finish and go across now to take out the Open Men's Singles Scull on lane 1. Spencer Turren first, and Hamish Playfair hangs on to second place, just Cameron Girdlestone in third place. Force will go to lane 3, Wilson Muir. Next time, lane 6, Jack Hargraves just ahead of Samuel Volker. Then it was Christopher Hayes, and next time will be lane 8, Connor Clark from UTS.
The unofficial results of race 259, the Open Men's Single Scull A final. First, Spencer Turren. Second, Hamish Playfair. Third, Cameron Girdlestone. Fourth, Wilson Muir. Fifth, Jack Hargraves. Sixth, Samuel Volker. Seventh, Christopher Hayes. And eighth, Connor Clark. And the presentation of the medals for the Open Women's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Andrew Gurin, Rowing Australia Life Member and Director of Rowing Australia. Third place and bronze medalists, Sydney University and the National Training Centre, Genevieve Horton, coached by Alfie Young. In second place, and our silver medalists, Adelaide Rowing Club, Olympia Aldersey, coached by Jason Lane. And our gold medalist, an Australian champion for 2017, Commercial Rowing Club, Maddie Edmonds, coached by Tom Westgarth. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champion and medalists.
A message for all on site regarding the weather. Along with the expected heavy rainfall today, strong wind gusts can be anticipated. Athletes and coaches please ensure that boats and other equipment is secured. Schools and clubs, if you have a tent set up, please ensure that it is pegged and appropriately tied down.
On the course, we have race 260, the Open Women's Pair Final. Lane 2, Sydney. Lane 3, UTS Sydney Composite. Lane 4, Buckingham Huon Composite. Lane 5, Mercantile. Lane 6, Sydney University Adelaide Composite. Lane 7, Adelaide. And Lane 8, Brisbane and GPS.
And we've just gone through the 500 metre mark in the final of the Open Women's Coxless Pair. And it was the Sydney University and Adelaide combination in the centre of the course, or lane 6 at least. Molly Goodman from the Adelaide Rowing Club and Georgina Gotch from Sydney University, coached by Alfie Young and Rod Mobbs, who were the narrow race leaders as they passed through that first quarter of the race. So Sydney Uni Adelaide lane 6, UTS and Sydney then over in lane 3. Leah Saunders from Sydney, Elizabeth Halsall from UTS. Only half a second back in second place, in fact, and less than 0.2 of a second behind them was the lane 4 combination, the all-Tasmanian composite crew from the Buckingham and Huon Club, Sarah Hoare from Huon and Megan Volker from Buckingham. So those three were in the medal places, but barely 3/4 of a second between them all, and very close as well. Also lane 5, Mercantile in the VIS, Addie Dunkley-Smith and Katrina Werry, coached by Simon Gadsden. So still plenty to sort out here in this final of the Open Women's Coxless Pair. Of course, these crews racing for the first time for the Sarah Tate Memorial Trophy. You heard from Bill Tate before in conversation with Ray Ebbett about the design of the trophy and the swan and exactly what this all means. And we'll have our first winner awarded by Sarah's parents in just a few minutes' time at the conclusion of this A final of the Open Women's Coxless Pair. And it's still very close. A great race in prospect here. The top 4 separated by less than a length as they go through the halfway mark. And it continues to be lane 6, Sydney Uni Adelaide, but only just 3:40.08 and less than 2/3 of a second from Buckingham Huon. The Tasmanian combination now narrowly up into second place. And then UTS Sydney lane 3 and Mercantile VIS lane 4, just 0.15 of a second separate the potential bronze medalists at this stage. So 4 very good chances in the Open Women's Coxless Pair as they continue down through the second 1,000 metres now. 5th place at halfway was Sydney Rowing Club, Partridge and Deer on lane 2. Then Adelaide, Webb and Webb, lane 7. And Brisbane and GPS, Ogden and Beach, closest to the grandstand side of the course in lane 8. But around about 700 metres to go for our race leaders. Again, several of the Australian representatives for the World Cup regattas later this year on show in this race. Molly Goodman and Georgina Gotch, both selected in various parts of that squad. It'll race in both Poznan and Lucerne in the World Cup regattas later in the year before potentially the World Championships in Florida in September. And they continue to be our narrow race leaders there on lane 6, but right up there with them too, Sarah Hoare and Megan Volker. Sarah Hoare also a member. Sarah Hoare also a member of the Australian squad, along with Megan Volker. Sarah will race in the women's 4, and sitting in a good position there in a narrow second place with Mercantile's Dunkley Smith and Werry, and also UTS Sydney, Elizabeth Halsall and Leah Saunders as they come through the 1,500 metre mark, and still nothing between our top three, at least about 1.5 seconds first to third. The UTS Sydney crew have just dropped off a little from that top trio, but very close between Sydney Uni, Adelaide, Buckingham, Huon and Mercantile and the VIS as they now approach the final few hundred metres of this race. It was Sydney Uni, Adelaide, Goodman and Gotch. Still, they've led at each of the timing points, but never by more than a second. In fact, never by more than about half a second. And it was just 0.46 with 500 metres to race. So Goodman and Gotch, that is, of Sydney Uni. And Adelaide in lane 6. And lane 4 really giving chase. Hoare and Volker from Buckingham and Huon, the Tasmanian combination, coming through very strongly now in the closing strokes of this race. And those two crews would have maybe a third of a length or so on Mercantile in third, Addie Dudley-Smith and Katrina Wary, coached by Simon Gadsden. They will be our medalists, surely. You go back a couple of lengths then to the lane 3 combination from UTS, and further back then Sydney, Adelaide and also Brisbane and GPS. But have a look at these top three as they approach the grandstand and the finish line. Buckingham lane 4, Mercantile lane 5, Sydney Uni in lane 6, and nothing between them as these crews race for the inaugural Sarah Tate Memorial Trophy, and you cannot pick a winner at this stage. Lane 6, Sydney Uni and Adelaide, beside the Mercantile in 5, Buckingham Huon over in lane 4, maybe with the narrowest of leads, but there's still 60 or 70 metres to row. Mercantile on the centre, Buckingham Huon on the far side might just have the narrow edge still there also. Sydney Uni and Adelaide as they head towards the line. Buckingham Huon from Mercantile, they hit the line and the Tasmanians will get it. Buckingham Huon just from Mercantile and the VIS in second place, and Sydney Uni and Adelaide in third, but there was barely a canvas from first to third. What a race in the open women's coxless pair. Back to fourth place, it will be lane 3, UTS and Sydney Rowing Club, followed home by lane 2 from Sydney, lane 7 Adelaide, and lane 8 Brisbane and GPS.
And the unofficial results of race 260, the open women's pair final. First, Buckingham Huon. Second, Mercantile. Third, Sydney University Adelaide. Fourth, UTS Sydney. Fifth, Sydney. Sixth, Adelaide. And seventh, Brisbane and GPS. The presentation of the medals for the Open Men's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Andrew Gurin, Rowing Australia Life member and Director of Rowing Australia. Third place and bronze medalists from Sydney University Rowing Club, Cameron Girdlestone, coached by Donald McLaughlin. Second place and silver medalist from UTS Rowing Club and the National Training Centre, Hamish Playfair, coached by Tim McLaren and John Smythe. And our gold medalist and Australian champion for 2017, Spencer Turren. Coached by Donovan Check, Jason Baker and Lachlan Carter. Please congratulate our 2017 Australian champion and medalists. On the course now, we have race 261, the Open Men's Pair Final. Lane 1, Mercantile NTC VIS. Lane 2, Melbourne University Mercantile Composite. Lane 3, UTS Sydney National Training Centre. Lane 4, Sydney National Training Centre. Lane 5, Adelaide National Training Centre. Lane 6, Black Mountain Swan River National Training Centre. Lane 7, Sydney University National Training Centre. And Lane 8, Melbourne University UTS New South Wales Institute of Sport.
And our leaders just going through the 1,500 metre mark now in this final of the Open Men's Coxswains Pair. So only 500 metres racing to go, and it's looking almost as close as the previous race. Just 20/100th of a second between first and second. The Sydney Rowing Club National Training Centre combination over on lane 4, the narrowest of race leaders. That's Angus Moore and Joshua Hicks. And their closest competition, Adelaide and the National Training Centre, lane 5, Bryn Coudray and Alexandra Hill. Those two our semi-final winners from yesterday, and they've moved about a second and a half clear then of the rest of the field. Third place would look to be lane 2 across from Melbourne Uni and Mercantile. Josh Dunkley-Smith and Joshua Booth, both members, of course, of last year's Olympic silver medal winning men's 4, but some work to do behind our leading couple of open men's coxswain pairs here. Angus Moore and Josh Hicks from Sydney, and Bryn Coudray and Alexandra Hill from Adelaide. And those two have a clear water margin back on the rest of the field. Also racing for third would be the Black Mountain and Swan River combination, David Watts and Luke Letcher, who, of course, this year's Australian men's double scull, racing in the pair this time around and racing potentially for a bronze medal. But it's Sydney and Adelaide for the gold here in the open men's coxswain pair. Angus Moore and Joshua Hicks have taken probably half a length or so now from Coudray and Hill of Adelaide alongside them there in second place, and finishing quickly on the far side too, Melbourne Uni Mercantile, but Sydney Angus Moore and Joshua Hicks are clear by almost a length now, and they will win the open men's coxswain pair. Sydney first, Adelaide second. A great finish there once again in this pair's racing. Third place will go to Melbourne Uni Mercantile, Dunkley-Smith and Booth on the far side. Very close for fourth. It may have been lane 3 UTS just ahead of Black Mountain. Then Sydney Uni lane 7, Melbourne Uni in lane 8, and Mercantile lane 1, the final crew home in the open men's coxswain pair final.
So the unofficial results of race 261, the open men's pair final. First, Sydney National Training Centre, Adelaide. Third, Melbourne University Mercantile. Fourth, UTS Sydney. Fifth, Black Mountain Swan River. Sixth, Sydney University. Seventh, Melbourne University. Eighth, Mercantile. We're delighted this year to be presenting the inaugural Sarah Tate Memorial Trophy, presented to the Women's Coxless Pair Champions of Australia. The trophy replaces the Carlton United Breweries plate and in turn recognises the amazing contribution to our sport by the late Sarah Tate, Olympic silver medalist in the women's pair. We are delighted today to be joined by Sarah's husband Bill and her parents, Barbara and Simon Outhwaite, who will present the medals and the inaugural trophy. The presentation of medals for the Open Women's Pair Championships of Australia. The medals will be presented by Sarah Tate's husband and parents, Bill Tate and Barbara and Simon Outhwaite. Third place and the bronze medalists from Sydney University, Adelaide, Molly Goodman and Georgina Gotch, coached by Alfie Young and Rob Mobbs. Second place, and our silver medalists from Mercantile Rowing Club, Addie Dunkley-Smith and Katrina Wary, coached by Simon Gadsden. And the gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017, Buckingham Rowing Club and Huon Rowing Club and TIS, Sarah Hoare and Megan Volker, coached by Brett Crow and Neil Stump. The Sarah Tate Memorial Trophy will now be presented by Bill Tate. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists and the winner of the Sarah Tate Memorial Trophy.
The A final of the under-23 women's lightweight single scull is now in progress. In lane 1, Tiffany Brown from University of Western Australia. In lane 2, Megan Hester of Mercantile. In lane 3, Georgina Masters of UTS and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. In lane 4, Madeline Williams of University of Queensland. In lane 5, Wallace Russell of Sydney University Boat Club. In lane 6, Verena Zilm of Adelaide and the South Australian Sports Institute. In lane 7, Rosie Beasley from UTS. And in lane 8, Gemma Dane from Lower Clarence Rowing Club and the North Coast Academy of Sport.
And another close finish potentially coming up here in the A final, the under-23 lightweight women's single scull. There was only 2 seconds from first to fourth at the 1,500 metre mark. The race was being led narrowly by Verena Zilm on lane 6, the sculler from the Adelaide Rowing Club and the South Australian Sports Institute, by just 0.8 of a second from the University of Queensland's Madeline Williams in second place. And in between those two in terms of lanes, lane 5, City University Wallace Russell about a further half second further back, and a similar margin to Georgina Masters from the University of Technology, Sydney, and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. So the middle lanes is where the racing is at this stage, and they're soon to approach the 1,500 metre mark, so we'll get a better look at what these scullers have done, but it would appear that it might be that sculler now in lane 5 from Sydney University, Wallace Russell. It is indeed, who has gone to the lead of this race from a bit over a second back in third place at halfway. Now leads it by 1.71 seconds at the 1,500 metre mark. So moving up strongly into the concluding stages of this race now. 5:53.16 the time for Wallace Russell through 1,500 metres. Verena Zilm now back in a second, 1.71 behind, and Madeline Williams in third place. So she's rowing for Sydney University, but it is indeed another Queenslander in Wallace Russell who leads this race. About 300 metres now to go. Wallace Russell from Sydney Uni, another leading from Verena Zilm, still of Adelaide in second place there in lane 6, and the University of Queensland's Madeline Williams there as well in lane 4, just a little bit ahead of UTS's Georgina Masters over in lane 3, and then the second of the UTS scullers in lane 7, Rosalie Beasley there in about 5th place at this stage. But Wallace Russell has gone for home here. She's got a clear length or so on the sculler alongside her in lane 6, Verena Zilm from Adelaide, and the South Australian Sports Institute led the race for the first 1,000 metres, but it's been overtaken now by Wallace Russell, who also leads Madeline Williams there just narrowly in third place, ahead of Georgina Masters, still in contention as well, at least for a bronze medal. But Wallace Russell from Sydney University, coached by Alfie Young. She looks to be comfortably clear now, ahead of Verena Zilm, coached by Jason Lane, alongside her in second place. But it will be Wallace Russell in the under-23 lightweight women's single scull, clear by almost a length and a half. Wallace Russell first. Second place to Verena Zilm of Adelaide. Third place, lane 4 from University of Queensland, Madeline Williams. And fourth place from UTS, Georgina Masters. And back to this side, lane 7 will be Rosie Beasley. Next across the line in 5th. 6th will go to the Mercantile sculler, Megan Hester. And 7th on this side, lane 8, Gemma Dane from Lower Clarence. And then Tiffany Brown from the University of Western Australia.
The unofficial results of that A final of the under-23 lightweight women's single scull: a win for Wallace Russell of Sydney University Boat Club. Second, Verena Zilm of Adelaide Rowing Club and the South Australian Sports Institute. Third for Madeline Williams of University of Queensland. Fourth, Georgina Masters of UTS and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Fifth, Rosie Beasley from UTS. Sixth, Megan Hester from Mercantile. Seventh, Gemma Dane from Lower Clarence and the North Coast Academy of Sport. Eighth, Tiffany Brown from University of WA. Unofficial time for that race, 7 minutes 55.58 seconds. The margins 2.68 and 3.64. The presentation of medals and the Ted Bromley Memorial Trophy for the Open Men's Pairs Championship of Australia. The medals and trophy will be presented by Andrew Guerin, Rowing Australia Life Member and Director of Rowing Australia. Accompanied by Ray Ebbett, Team Manager for the Senior Rowing Australia team. Third place and bronze medalists, Melbourne University and Mercantile Rowing Clubs. Josh Booth from Melbourne University. Josh Dunkley-Smith from Mercantile Rowing Club. Second place and silver medalists, Adelaide Rowing Club. Alexander Hill. Bryn Coudray. Gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017, Sydney Rowing Club. Joshua Hicks. Angus Moore, both rowers supported by the National Training Centre and coached by Donovan Check. Andrew will now present Sydney Rowing Club rowers Angus Moore and Joshua Hicks with the Ted Bromley Memorial Trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate all our medalists and our 2017 champions in the Open Men's Pair.
Seen the conclusion of the B final of the under-23 men's lightweight single scull. Patrick Bohr from Swan River unofficially across the line first ahead of Banks, Edward Manton and James McQuillan from the University of Western Australia in the B final of the under-23 lightweight men's single scull.
And the list of contestants in the A final of the under-23 lightweight men's single scull. In lane 1, Alec Patterson from Buckingham and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. In lane 2, Jack Armitage of Toowong and the Queensland Academy of Sport. In lane 3, Leon Chambers of Sydney University Boat Club. In lane 4, Jaden Gray of Mercantile Rowing Club. In lane 5, Sean Murphy of Mossman Rowing Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. In lane 6, Matthew Byrne of New Norfolk and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. In lane 7, Blaine Heseltine from the University of Queensland. And in lane 8, Mick Tander from the University of Queensland.
And they are halfway through now this A final in the under-23 lightweight men's single scull, and the race being led by Sean Murphy of Mossman Rowing Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport on lane 5, coached by Matthias Ungermuck and Nick Garrett. Is Sean Murphy, who was also a member of last year's Australian under-21 rowing team that competed in the Trans-Tasman Regatta Series against New Zealand. So Sean Murphy leads it in 3:34.65, just over 2 seconds back to Leon Chambers in second place from Sydney University on lane 3, coached by Donald McLaughlin and Dustin Butler. Chambers was 6th after 500 metres, so a very strong second 500 to move up to be provisionally in the silver medal spot at this stage of the race. And also fighting out for the medals, Mercantile's Jaden Gray, coached by David Colvin there in lane 4. In one of the two semi-final winners, seated to the centre lanes. But he would be back by a length or two on our leading scullers at this stage. So it still looks to be the Mossman sculler, Sean Murphy, and with him, Sydney Uni's Leon Chambers, and it will in fact be Chambers who's gained another place now over the third 500, and Leon Chambers goes through with almost half a length on Sean Murphy now in this A final of the under-23 lightweight men's single scull. Chambers first in 5:25.77, and 1.63 seconds he now has on Sean Murphy of Mossman. Jaden Gray of Mercantile still there in third place, but almost 4.5 seconds off the battle for the lead. Fourth place then Alec Patterson from Buckingham and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. The University of Queensland's Blaine Heseltine narrowly back in fifth place. Then Matthew Byrne of New Norfolk in sixth. Jack Armitage of Toowong in seventh. And Mick Tander from the University of Queensland in lane 8 in eighth position at this stage. But it's a race between two Sydney-based scullers, Leon Chambers of Sydney Uni and Sean Murphy of Mossman at this stage. Those two look to have Clearwater back on the rest of the field, where the battle for the bronze medal may indeed be interesting too. Jaden Gray of Mercantile narrowly third at this stage, but plenty of chasers approaching him. But our leading two scullers continue now inside the final 200 metres. Leon Chambers from Sydney University, who was sixth after 500 metres, second at the 1,000. He'd moved to the lead by the 1,500 metre mark, but only just, and he's hanging on now by probably half a length or so over the Mossman sculler, Sean Murphy. But Murphy now has started to lift as well. The ratings really winding up in this under-23 lightweight men's single scullers. These two Sydney-based scullers head for Holmes. Chambers lifts again as Murphy comes at him and maintains this lead of at least a half a length or so. He looks to me to be pulling away here in the closing strokes. Leon Chambers from Sydney University's got 3 or 4 strokes to go. Sean Murphy is still pushing Chambers in front by less than a length, but he'll hold on and get there. Leon Chambers first for Sydney University. A great effort there over the closing strokes. Sean Murphy of Mossman in second place. Third on the far side, the bronze medal will go to Alec Patterson of Buckingham, just ahead of Jaden Gray, Blaine Heseltine, Matthew Byrne in quick succession, 4th, 5th and 6th. 7th place, lane 8, the sculler from Drummoyne, and 8th place over on the far side. In fact, I should say 7th place, Mick Tander from University of Queensland. 8th place, Jack Armitage from Toowong in the A final of the under-23 lightweight men's single scull.
The unofficial results of the under-23 lightweight men's single scull final. A win for Leon Chambers of Sydney University Boat Club. Second, Sean Murphy of Mossman Rowing Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Third, Alec Patterson of Buckingham and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. Fourth, Jaden Gray of Mercantile. Fifth, Blaine Heseltine of the University of Queensland. Sixth, Matthew Byrne of New Norfolk and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. Seventh, Mick Tander from University of Queensland. Eighth, Jack Armitage of Toowong and the Queensland Academy of Sport. Provisional time for that race, 7 minutes, 15.64 seconds. The margins 1.07 and 7.17. The presentation of medals for the under-23 lightweight women's single scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Dr. Steve Hinchy, Life Member of Rowing Australia. Third place and bronze medalist, representing the University of Queensland Boat Club, Madeline Williams. Madeline is coached by Ned Drayden. Second place and silver medalist, representing Adelaide Rowing Club and supported by the South Australian Sports Institute, Verena Zilm. Verena is coached by Jason Lane. gold medalist and Australian champion for 2017, representing the Sydney University Boat Club, Wallace Russell. Wallace is coached by Alfie Young. Ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate our 2017 champion and our medalists in the under-23 lightweight women's single scull. The B final of the under-21 lightweight women's scull is drawing to a close. On the start line, the A final of the under-21 lightweight women's single scull, race number 267 on the programme. In lane 1, Annika Reardon from Lindisfarne. In lane 2, Bianca Gillett from Canberra Girls Grammar School. In lane 3, Portia Bennett from University of Queensland. In lane 4, Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland. In lane 5, Romola Davenport of Sydney Rowing Club. In lane 6, Sarah Robinson of the University of Queensland. In lane 7, Alex Dennis of the University of Queensland. And in lane 8, Celia Cowan of Adelaide University.
And through that first 500 metres in the A final, it was Celia Cowan on this side of the course, lane number 8, that was leading 1:54.94. And then Sydney's Romy Davenport in the centre of the course in second spot. And then the three scullers from the University of Queensland, Lucy Coleman in third, Portia Bennett fourth, Sarah Robinson fifth. Gillett of Canberra Girls is next in sixth place, Alex Dennis of the University of Queensland in seventh, and Annika Reardon of Lindisfarne in eighth. That's how they were through the first 500 metres. They're making their way up towards the 800 metre mark as the B final starts to reach its conclusion. Talia Jones of Adelaide University will take it out just narrowly from Sarah Larkin of ANU and the ACT Academy of Sport, Underwood of Corowa third, and Gilly Roberts of ANU fourth, fifth to Hewins Lucy Southcott, and followed by Adelaide's Rosie Barnett. Alexandra Utley of University of Western Australia is in seventh, and Jane Kavanagh of UTS eighth. So that's how the B final finishes up to sort out places 9 through to 16 in the under-21 lightweight women's single scull event, as the A final just starts to make its way up towards the halfway mark. And a good performance coming from the sculler in lane number 4, Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland, leading Sydney Rowing Club's Romy Davenport, only by about half a length, and then 3/4 of a boat length to Portia Bennett of the University of Queensland. Sarah Robinson a further 0.75 seconds back, and Celia Cowan on this side of the course in lane number 8, who led through the first 500 metres, has been pushed back into 5th position, but still less than 4 seconds separating first through to 5th. Bianca Gillett in 6th place for Canberra Girls Grammar School, and then followed by Dennis of University of Queensland and Annika Reardon of Lindisfarne in 8th place over on the far side of the course. So, University of Queensland, Lucy Coleman, coached by Ned Drayden, in the lead in this under-21 women's lightweight single scull A final. And Robbie Davenport of Sydney Rowing Club, who was selected in the Australian Junior Women's Quad Scull last year, had a rib injury and as a result was unable to be part of the crew racing internationally. And looking to have a good performance here in the under-21 lightweight women's single scull A final. Having a good tussle with Lucy Coleman, and the big mover in this third 500 metres has been the sculler in lane 6, Sarah Robinson of the University of Queensland, who's really putting in a very strong third 500 metres, and we'll see what that will leave her with coming into the last quarter of this race. So moving into the lead, Sarah Robinson of the University of Queensland. And then very close between Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland and Romy Davenport, only sitting at about a third of a boat length margin between second and third. And then Portia Bennett of the University of Queensland next in fourth place, Cowan in fifth, Gillett sixth. And then the scullers in lane number 7 and lane number 1, Alex Dennis of the University of Queensland and Annika Reardon of Lindisfarne. Back in the field and unlikely to be on the medal presentation pontoon. So very, very strong back end of the race coming from Sarah Robinson of the University of Queensland. Great effort from the University of Queensland, qualifying half the field for the A final, 4 of the 8 scullers from row UQBC. And 1,700 metres covered. And Sarah Robinson looks as though she may well have judged this race very, very well. She's out to a little bit of clear water. Romy Davenport of Sydney Rowing Club has started to move back on Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland and put her bow into second spot. And Lucy Coleman back in third spot, and then followed by Portia Bennett of the University of Queensland in fourth spot. So very good effort getting 4 of the 8 scullers through, and possibly 3 of the top 4 for the University of Queensland in this under-21 lightweight women's single scull. And Romy Davenport now out to about a length on the third place sculler Lucy Coleman and trying to see if she can challenge Sarah Robinson, but it was that decisive third 500 metres from the sculler in the mauve boat that may well have placed her in the middle of the medal presentation pontoon. Sarah Robinson, coached by Ned Drayden of the University of Queensland, set to take out the under-21 lightweight women's single scull. Romy Davenport of Sydney Rowing Club will claim the silver medal, and it will be Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland that claims the bronze medal, fourth to Portia Bennett of the University of Queensland. And very close for fifth place between Gillett of Canberra Girls and Celia Cowan of Adelaide University. I think Cowan may just have edged that, but we'll await official results on that. And in seventh place, Reardon of Lindisfarne, followed by Dennis of the University of Queensland.
Recapping those results of the A final of the under-21 lightweight women's single scull, a win for Sarah Robinson of the University of Queensland, coached by Ned Drayden. In second place, Romola Davenport of Sydney Rowing Club, coached by Lachlan Carter. And in third place, Lucy Coleman of the University of Queensland, coached by Ned Drayden. In fourth, Portia Bennett from UQBC. In fifth, Bianca Gillett from Canberra Girls Grammar, coached by Daffyd Gwyn-Jones. In sixth, Celia Cowan of Adelaide University, coached by Darren Potts. In seventh, Annika Reardon of Lindisfarne, coached by Michael Reardon. And in eighth, Alex Dennis of University of Queensland. Provisional time for that race, 8 minutes, 12.04 seconds. The margins 3.17 and 2.49. The presentation of medals for the Under-23 Lightweight Men's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Dr. Steve Hinchy, Life Member of Rowing Australia. 。 Third place and bronze medalist representing Buckingham and the Tasmanian Institute of Sport, Alec Patterson. Alec was coached by Brett Crow. Second place and silver medalist, Mossman Rowing Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport sculler, Sean Murphy. Sean is coached by Matthias Ungemach and Nick Garrett. Gold medalist and Australian champion for 2017, representing Sydney University Boat Club, Leon Chambers. Leon is coached by Don McLaughlin and Dustin Butler. Ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate the 2017 Australian champion and the medalists in the Under-23 Lightweight Men's Single Scull Championship of Australia.
We have the B final of the Under-21 men's lightweight single scull nearing its conclusion, with Ethan Aird of the University of Western Australia just edging out to a little bit of clear water from the Toowong sculler Isaac Game, who just isn't able to match him with rating and sprint finish. And it will be Ethan Aird that wins the B final to place 9th overall in the event. Isaac Game placing second, William Williamson of Swan River third, and then followed by a very close tussle between lane number 8 and lane 2. D'Artagnan Edwards of Phoenix and the South Australian Sports Institute just heads home. Jack Tomich of Adelaide University, and then Eric Lowe of Banks is next in 6th position. 2 withdrawals from that field of 8.
In the A final of the Under-21 Lightweight Men's Single Scull, Capital Lakes ACT Academy of Sport sculler Nathan Kennedy is in lane 1. In lane 2, Nat Graham from New Norfolk. In lane 3, Jacob Flanagan from Sydney University. In lane 4, Chase Dietner from West Australian Rowing Club. In lane 5, Matthew Curtin from UTS and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. In lane 6, Mitchell Reinhardt from Unley High. In lane 7, Wai Chun Wong from Team Hong Kong. And in lane 8, Matthew Reddy from Toowong.
And less than half a metre separating the top 3. Matthew Curtin led through the 1,000-metre mark, 3:37.45. Jacob Flanagan of Sydney University Boat Club in 2nd spot, and Chase Dietner, who led through the first 500 metres, just narrowly back in 3rd spot. And then a bit of a gap, 3.52 seconds to Nathan Kennedy of Capital Lakes over on the far side of the course in lane number 1. Unley High's Mitchell Reinhardt, who's was looking very promising in the heats. He's back in 5th position from Unley High School in South Australia. Matthew Reddy of Toowong in 6th, New Norfolk's Nat Graham in 7th, and Wai Chun Wong of Team Hong Kong in 8th position. So Matt Curtin having moved into the lead with a very strong second 500, and he looks to be consolidating that in this third 500 as he makes his way up to 1,300 metres covered. Part of the Australian Under-21 team last year. Very, very talented sculler. He won the Head of the River with St Joseph's College, their first win in 42 years in the first 8s. Back in 2015. And massively talented youngster. He was part of the winning Noel F. Wilkinson Cup crew last year in the Interstate Youth 8s for New South Wales. And he's having a very strong third 500 metres as he leads Chase Dietner of West Australian Rowing Club, coached by Joe Tamigi, and Jacob Flanagan of Sydney University Boat Club, coached by Dustin Butler and Don McLaughlin. So Matt Curtin now stretched that out to the best part of a boat length on Chase Dietner, and a similar gap to Jacob Flanagan in third spot. So these three have really pushed clear. Nathan Kennedy over on the far side of the course, still 3.87 seconds back, so a fair bit of work for him to do to try and claim a medal in this one. And then it is back to Reinhardt of Unley High School, the same school that the first female Prime Minister of Australia attended. And Team Hong Kong's Wai Chun Wong has moved up from 8th into 6th position. Matthew Reddy of Toowong in 7th, and Nat Graham of New Norfolk in 8th place. So Matt Curtin, coached by Tim McLaren and John Smythe at UTS Rowing Club. Matt Curtin does a little bit of coaching himself on this very course. He coaches at Loretto Normanhurst as well in his very limited spare time. And he's out to some clear water now over Chase Dietner of West Australian Rowing Club. So he's just been able to just eke that margin out a little bit as the race has progressed. And Matt Curtin, well on the way to becoming national champion here in the under-21 men's lightweight single scull. Fine sculling from this young man. Such a talent, and he's now moved that out to 2 boat lengths advantage over Chase Dietner of West Australian Rowing Club. In third spot, Jacob Flanagan of Sydney University. That doesn't have it all his own way, as Nathan Kennedy of Capital Lakes and the ACT Academy of Sport is really trying to give him plenty to think about. But gold medal and national championship to Matthew Curtin of UTS and the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Silver medal to Chase Dietner of West Australian Rowing Club. And Jacob Flanagan holds on for a bronze medal for Sydney University Boat Club. 4th to Nathan Kennedy of Capital Lakes and the ACT Academy of Sport. Wai Chun Wong improves another placing in that last 500 metres to move up to 5th position. 6th was the Unley High Sculler Mitchell Reinhardt, followed by Reddy of Toowong and Graham of New Norfolk, Tasmania.
Recapping those results of the A final of the under-21 lightweight men's single scull, it was a win for Matthew Curtin of UTS and the New South Wales Institute of Sport in a time of 7 minutes 17.96. In second position, Chase Dietner of West Australian Rowing Club, the margin 4.75, and in third, Jacob Flanagan of Sydney University Boat Club, the margin 5.04. In fourth, Nathan Kennedy of Capital Lakes and the ACT Academy of Sport. In fifth, Wai Chun Wong of Team Hong Kong. In sixth, Mitchell Reinhardt of Unley High. In seventh, Matthew Reddy of Toowong. And in eighth, Nat Graham of New Norfolk. The presentation of medals for the Under-21 Lightweight Women's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Dr. Steve Hinchy, Life Member of Rowing Australia. Third place and bronze medalist representing the University of Queensland Boat Club, Lucy Coleman. Lucy is coached by Ned Drayden. Second place and silver medalist representing Sydney Rowing Club, Romola Davenport. Romola is coached by Lachlan Carter. Gold medalist and Australian champion for 2017, representing the University of Queensland Boat Club, Sarah Robinson. Sarah is coached by Ned Drayden. Ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate the 2017 Australian champion and the medalists in the under-21 lightweight women's single scull. Race number 270 on your programme is the final of the under-23 lightweight men's coxless pair. The current title holder is Toowong Rowing Club. In the race today, in lane 4, representing Townsville and James Cook University, Liam Buxton and Aaron McRae, coached by Rob Hamilton. In lane 5, representing Mercantile Rowing Club, Carl Tomzak and William Legg, coached by Dave Chipper Colvin. In lane 6, defending champions from Toowong, David Carter and James Doring, coached by Kieran Dwyer and Alex Field.
So they had a race for lanes yesterday, and it was the Mercantile crew that won by 30 seconds. And even if there was much of a sun today, you wouldn't need the sundial. It'll be a fair bit closer here to sort out the margins here for the final of the under-23 lightweight men's coxless pair. Toowong are the defending champions with a different crew, and David Carter has come in for Tom Franey in the Toowong boat that's racing here in lane number 6. But through the first 500 metres, it was Toowong leading just by 1.10 seconds from Mercantile's Tomzak and Legg, and for the 3.24 back to Buxton and McRae of Townsville and James Cook University. And now Townsville and James Cook University just starting to lose touch with these top two boats. So it certainly looks as though the Toowong and Mercantile crews going to have the top place to fight out between them, and Toowong still maintaining the advantage as they make their way up towards 950 metres covered. And Mercantile now just starting to draw up on level terms as they come through the halfway mark. So very narrow margin in favour of, it's listed as Mercantile over Toowong, and very close between these two crews. Toowong coached by Kieran Dwyer, the 4-time Penrith Cup winning coach from the last 4 years, and Alex Field. Toowong, the rowing club out of Brisbane, Queensland, and Mercantile Rowing Club out of Melbourne, Victoria. Carl Tomzak, William Legg, coached by David Colvin, the Australian coxswain from quite a number of years ago. And these two are having a very, very good tussle. And Townsville and James Cook University out there and just trying to see if they can limit the damage that they've incurred in that second 500 metres. They dropped 12 seconds on the other crews in that second 500 metres. So I'll see if they can try and limit that over these next two 500s. The Mercantile have started to make a bit of a push and seen them edge ahead of the early race leaders from Toowong, David Carter and James Doring. And now just starting to stretch that out to a boat length or so as they come up to 1,400 metres covered. And we'll see what response Toowong have, if any. They've been rowed through, and can they start to push back and get a little bit of an overlap and put some pressure and try and maybe force a mistake from the Mercantile crew in this last 500 metres of the race. So out to about a length and 3/4. Mercantile, Carl Tomzak and William Legg over the Toowong combination of Carter and Doring. And then it's an increasing margin back to Buxton and McRae of Townsville and James Cook University. So if you're looking to get out of the rain, the Row Union marquee is now open. Off the water, there's plenty to see and do this week, and the Row Union marquee is back again and positioned right next to the grandstand. So go to the Row Union marquee to catch up with past rowing buddies and crews. So whether you don your club tie or blazer, it's a place you'll want to be. So it's available right through the last race on Sunday. So Mercantile continue their domination of the back half of the under-23 lightweight men's coxless pair. Toowong, the defending champion club in this event, but they've been unable to match the power of Mercantile in the second half of the race, and just look as though they're a little bit stuck on that one rating, and Mercantile have been able to find another gear and move further and further away. And they claim a good win by about 4 boat lengths over Toowong in second spot, and then a fair margin back to Townsville and James Cook University, Liam Buxton and Aaron McRae, who placed third.
And the unofficial results of the under-23 lightweight men's coxless pair championship. A win for Mercantile, Carl Tomzak and William Legg. Second, Toowong, David Carter and James Doring. And third, Townsville and James Cook University, Liam Buxton and Aaron McRae. Unofficial time for that race, 7 minutes, 2.11 seconds. The margins 9.84 and 29.41. The presentation of medals for the under-21 lightweight men's single championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Rob Smithies, head of Sydney University Sport and Fitness. Third place and bronze medalist representing Sydney University Boat Club, Jacob Flanagan. Jacob is coached by Dustin Butler and Don McLaughlin. Second place and silver medalist, representing West Australian Rowing Club, Chase Dietner. Chase is coached by Joe Tamigi. Gold medalist and Australian champion for 2017, representing UTS Rowing Club and the New South Wales Institute of Sport, Matthew Curtin. Matthew is coached by Tim McLaren and John Smythe. Ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate all our medalists in the under-21 lightweight men's single scull. The B final of the Open Lightweight Women's Single Scull is in progress, and the A final has just started. Our lineup in the Open Lightweight Women's Single Scull A final for the Herald and Weekly Times Trophy is Eve Muir of Huon in lane 1, India Mackenzie of Melbourne University and the Victorian Institute of Sport in lane 2, Amy James of Toowong and the National Training Centre in lane 3. In lane 4, Georgia Nesbitt of Huon and the National Training Centre. In lane 5, Georgia Mansaro of Sydney University Boat Club and the National Training Centre. In lane 6, Sophie Gerapatritis of UTS. In lane 7, Alice Arch of Melbourne University Boat Club and the National Training Centre. And in lane 8, from Team Hong Kong, Carman Lee.
And they have just started to make their way through the first 500 metres with Georgia Mansaro of Sydney University Boat Club and the National Training Centre. Leading from Amy James of Toowong in second spot, Georgia Nesbitt of Huon and the National Training Centre in third, and Alice Arch of Melbourne University and the National Training Centre in fourth. So the 4 National Training Centre scullers in the top 4 placings through that first 500 metres. Sophie Gerapatritis of UTS in 5th place. India Mackenzie of Melbourne University and the Victorian Institute of Sport next, and then back to Team Hong Kong's Carman Lee and Eve Muir of Huon. So the 2 scullers on the flanks of the field have back in 7th and 8th places. So Georgia Mansaro, who started off her rowing at Tideway Scullers School in London, United Kingdom, and moved over to Mossman Rowing Club quite a few years ago, and now recently this season moved across to Sydney University Boat Club. And last year, this time of year, she picked up an injury and wasn't able to race too much and race in the Victoria Cup, but she'll be looking forward to that this weekend, and currently well placed here in this Open Lightweight Women's Single Scull out of lane number 5 as she leads, heading up towards the 900 metre mark. Good row coming from Amy James of Toowong, and the very, very bright blue Felipe Shell out of lane number 3. The Toowong sculler coached by Alex Field and Kieran Dwyer. And Mansaro holding half a boat length as they come through, so 1.26 seconds, and then back to Georgia Nesbitt of Huon. And in 4th spot is Alice Arch, so the 4 National Training Centre scullers still holding down the top 4, and Gerapatritis just narrowly edging India Mackenzie for 5th and 6th place, and Eve Muir has just moved ahead of Carman Lee of Team Hong Kong from 8th into 7th place, and pushing the Team Hong Kong sculler back into 8th position. So 1,300 metres covered in the Open Lightweight Women's Single Scull A final for the Herald and Weekly Times Trophy, and Georgia Mansaro and Amy James that are duking it out at the head of the field. We're seeing Georgia Nesbitt of Huon in the National Training Centre. They're in 3rd spot and holding off Alice Arch of Melbourne University in the National Training Centre in lane number 7. So they're the top 4 as they make their way up towards the 1,500 metre mark. So Georgia Mansaro still only half a boat length, the margin that she holds on Amy James of Toowong and the National Training Centre, and Georgia Nesbitt just starting to close up a little bit. on the Toowong sculler. So they're the top three, and then there's a bit of a gap now developing back to Alice Arch, a further 6.5 seconds back to fourth place. India Mackenzie is moved up into fifth. Jeripatritis of UTS in sixth. And Eve Muir next, followed by Carmen Lee of Team Hong Kong. So Mansaro really keeping her length and really good movement as she opens the body up and really pushes through those hips and accelerates the boat, particularly the back end of the stroke. And she's just starting to move out to about 3/4 of a length, perhaps even now a boat length over Amy James of Toowong in the National Training Centre. And Georgia Nesbitt started to lift her rating now and go after the sculler from Toowong, Amy James. So they're the top three, and that's where the medals are likely to end up. India Mackenzie having a strong second half of the race as she tries to chase down Alice Archer, under 23 lightweight double scull Australian team member from last year. So a great finish coming up here. Georgia Mansaro of Sydney University Boat Club leading, and Georgia Nesbitt has really started to really jump the rate up a few points now and close to within a third of a boat length on Amy James in that race for the silver medal. Mansaro still holding about a boat length coming into the last 70 metres. And it is Georgia Nesbitt that has now put her bow into second spot, and Amy James doesn't seem to have a response. Seems to be just stuck there and just shortening up a little bit in the latter stages. But Georgia Mansaro claims the win. Almost a length and a half in the end from Georgia Nesbitt of Huon. In third place, Amy James of Toowong. And fourth will go to Alice Arch of Melbourne University. So the four NTC scullers claim positions 1 through to 4. Fifth to India Mackenzie of Melbourne University and the Victorian Institute of Sport. Sophie Jeripatritis places 6th for UTS. Eve Muir of Huon 7th. And Carmen Lee of Team Hong Kong 8th.
Unofficial result there. First, Georgia Mansaro. Second, Georgia Nesbitt. Third, Amy James. Fourth, Alice Arch. Then followed India Mackenzie, Sophie Jeripatritis, Eve Muir, Carman Lee. And the winning time, 7 minutes 46.2, as you were, 7 minutes 46.43. And the margins 2.82 by 2.37. The presentation of medals for the Under-23 Lightweight Men's Pair Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Mr. Rob Smithies, Head of Sydney University Sport. In second place and winners of the silver medal, Toowong Rowing Club, represented by David Carter and James Doring, and coached by Kieran Dwyer and Alex Field. Gold medalists and Australian champions for 2017, Mercantile Rowing Club, represented by Carl Tomzak and William Legg, coached by David Chips Colvin. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists.
We have the B final of the Open Lightweight Men's Single Scull nearing its conclusion now, around about 300 metres to race for the scullers in this one. And William Clark from the Australian National University and the ACT Academy of Sport was the comfortable race leader with 500 a race, and he remains there now. His biggest challenge right over this side coming from Patrick A of Adelaide University, and also Buckingham's Jacob Crow in the centre of the course, along with Cameron Rumble from Griffith University Surfers Paradise. Racing also in the A final of this race. We'll bring you some news on that one shortly, but for now we're watching William Clark, the sculler in lane 2 from the Australian National University, a couple of lengths clear of it would now be the red boat of the Buckingham sculler Jacob Crow, who's narrowly snuck up into second place ahead of possibly the Fremantle sculler lane 3, Mario Lepresti, who's had a strong final 500 metres, but certainly lane 2. William Clark from the Australian National University and the ACT Academy of Sport takes out the B final of the Open Lightweight Men's Singles Scull. Buckingham just Jacob Crow second, Mario Lepresti from Fremantle third, then Patrick A of Adelaide University and Cameron Rumble from Griffith Uni Surfers Paradise. And Team Vanuatu, the last sculler home. Rio, coached by Alan Kalfabun from Team Vanuatu in 6th place in this B final.
And race 274, the Open Lightweight Men's Single Scull Championship. Lane 1, Chu Mang Tang. Lane 2, Tim Day. Lane 3, Red Matthews. Lane 4, Hin Chun Chu. Lane 5, Thomas Perry. Lane 6, James Kerr. Lane 7, James Shooter. And Lane 8, Connor Grace.
Our leading sculler in lane 4 of the A final of the Open Lightweight Men's Single Scull is from Team Hong Kong, Hin Chun Chu. It is leading the race, but only just 3:30.76 his time to 1,000 metres, less than half a second back to the Canberra and ACT Academy of Sports sculler Thomas Perry in lane 5, coached by Renee Domichens and Andrew Randell, and narrowly behind him as well, less than half a second to third place, James Kerr from University of Western Australia and the West Australian Institute of Sport. And still very close too as we move through the field. Mercantile's Red Matthews in 4th place and UTS's James Shooter in 5th. And there'd barely be 1.5 seconds between those top 5 as they pass through the 1,000-metre mark. Slightly further back then, Corio Bay's Tim Day, Melbourne University's Connor Grace, and Chu Mang Tang, the second of the Team Hong Kong scullers in this race. So a good international representation, and certainly one of those Team Hong Kong scullers up there towards the lead. Although from here it would look as if Thomas Perry from the Canberra Rowing Club and the ACT Academy of Sport may well have assumed the race lead over the third 500 metres. They're approaching the 1,500 metre mark now. We'll see if it's as close there as it is at the 1,000, but we do have a clear leader in that sculler on lane 5, Thomas Perry from the Canberra Rowing Club and the ACT Academy of Sport, ahead of what's still a great race for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Hin Chun Chu from Team Hong Kong hanging on there to 2nd place, 2.63 seconds away from our new race leader, and then less than a second between our next couple of scullers. Red Matthews from the Mercantile Rowing Club, where he's coached by David Colvin, has moved up now into 3rd spot, and James Kerr from the University of Western Australia in lane 6, still there in 4th place as well. So it is the 4 middle lanes where the medalists are likely to come from. Slightly further back to James Shooter in lane 7, and Tim Day from Corio Bay, Connor Grace, Melbourne University, and the second Team Hong Kong sculler over on the far side of the course, Chu Mang Tang. But Thomas Perry it is here from the Canberra Rowing Club, coached by Renee Domashens. And Andy Randell continues to lead this race by a handy margin of just over a boat length or so from Team Hong Kong, Hin Chun Chu, and also a relatively speedy finish coming up from Red Matthews, the mercantile sculler across there in lane 3. Looks as if he's drawn up level with Team Hong Kong now in a good battle for second and third. And those two still sit just over a boat length behind our race leader, Thomas Perry, from the Canberra Rowing Club. Then further back on this side, James Kerr from the University of Western Australia looks comfortable in 4th place ahead of James Shooter from UTS in 5th. But it is certainly Thomas Perry from the Canberra club taking the lead just after the 1,000-metre mark and now drawing away with every stroke from this good battle for 2nd and 3rd place unfolding out to his right-hand side. But that won't concern Thomas Perry, who will take the title in the open lightweight men's single scull across by a couple of lengths. Thomas Perry, the winner, and second will go to lane 4, Hin Chun Chu from Team Hong Kong, holding on over the fast-finishing Red Matthews from Mercantile. Then it was James Kerr of the University of Western Australia, James Shooter from UTS, Tim Day of Corio Bay, and close for 7th, maybe Connor Grace of Melbourne Uni, just ahead of Chu Mang Tang from Team Hong Kong.
The unofficial result there: first, Thomas Perry; second, Hin Chun Chu; third, Red Matthews; fourth, James Kerr; fifth, James Shooter; sixth, Tim Day; 7th, Connor Grace; and in 8th place, Chu Mang Tang. Winning time 7:08.69. The margin 3.99 by 1.42. The presentation of medals and the Herald and Weekly Times trophy for the Open Lightweight Women's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals and trophy will be presented by Hannah Every Hall, Olympian and Chairman of the Athletes Commission and therefore Director of Rowing Australia. In 3rd place and bronze medalist, Toowong Rowing Club, represented by Amy James. Amy coached by Alex Field and Kieran Dwyer. In 2nd place and winner of the silver medals, Hewan Rowing Club, represented by Georgia Nesbitt. And Georgia is coached by Paul Newbon. Gold medalist and Australian champions for 2017, Sydney University Boat Club, represented by Georgia Miansaro. And Georgia is coached by Alfie Young. Ladies and gentlemen, Hannah will now present the Herald and Weekly Times trophy. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists. Race 275, the Open Lightweight Men's Coxless Pair. Lane 4, University of Western Australia Composite. Lane 5, Toowong, Queensland Academy of Sport. And Lane 6, University of Technology, Sydney Composite.
And they have now just come through the 500 metre mark of race 275, the straight final of the Open Lightweight Men's Coxless Pair. The Swan River Rowing Club, the defending champions in this race. They are represented through one of the athletes in the West Australian composite crew, but our race leaders after 500 metres were the Toowong and Queensland Academy of Sport crew of Jack Price and Hamish Parry, coached by Benjamin Southwell, and they had already taken 1.57 seconds of a lead over the West Australian combination beside them in lane 4. That's Perry Ward of Swan River and Timothy Whitcomb from the University of Western Australia Boat Club, where they're coached by Stefano Belosso in that currently second place crew. And back by a further 5 seconds or so is the UTS Sydney University composite crew in third place. And they're through the 1,000 metre mark now in the final of the Open Lightweight Men's Coxless Pair. No change in the order at this stage. It continues to be Toowong QAS, Jack Price and Hamish Parry, and race leaders slightly further in front now, 2.20 seconds to the University of Western Australia Swan River in second place, and still University of UTS and Sydney Uni. It is Jack Hanley of Sydney University, James Waldersea from UTS in third place. That crew coached by Tim McLaren and Donald McLaughlin. Just the three boats in this Open Lightweight Men's Coxless Pair. Hamish Parry from the Toowong combination has been selected in the Australian Lightweight Men's Quad Scull. It will compete at least at the third World Cup Regatta in Lucerne in Switzerland later on in the European racing season. But change in the lead. It seems as they come through the 1,500 metre mark now, and it is in fact University of Western Australia and Swan River. Timothy Whitcomb and Perry Ward, the crew that's taken a very narrow lead, 23 hundredths of a second between the two of them as they head inside the final 500 metres now. So only the three boats in the race, but these leading two putting on a very good contest. In any case, as we so often see in lightweight rowing. So the University of Western Australia and Swan River, now our race leaders Toowong and the QAS in second place, and the UTS Sydney University composite combination, Jack Hanley and James Waldersea, still there in third place as well. But Ward and Whitcomb from Swan River and the University of Western Australia leading Price and Parry from Toowong. And that lead of a quarter of a second or so at the 1,500 metre mark looks to be extended now by this Western Australian composite crew there on the far side of the course there on lane 4, ahead of Toowong in the centre in lane 5, and then the UTS Sydney Uni crew well back in lane 6 at this stage. So less than a couple of hundred metres to go now for our race leaders, and they do look to be consolidating their lead now in fine style. Perry Ward from Swan River and Timothy Whitcomb from the University of Western Australia Boat Club with a Clearwater lead now over the all-to-one combination of Jack Price and Hamish Parry, who led the race for about the first 13 or 1400 metres, but the West Australians got the lead when it mattered most, and they've extended now out to a couple of lengths and have just a few strokes to go to take the title in the open lightweight men's coxless pair. University of Western Australia and Swan River first. A neat 2 lengths it'll be to Wong in second place, and then back in third, the UTS and Sydney University combination now approaching the finish line.
And unofficially first, University of Western Australia Swan River Composite. In second place, Toowong Queensland Academy of Sport. And third, UTS Sydney University Composite. The winning time 6:47.31. And the margins 5.18 by 15.51. The presentation of medals for the Open Lightweight Men's Single Scull Championship of Australia. The medals will be presented by Hannah Every Hall, Olympian, Chair of the Athletes Commission and Director of Rowing Australia. In third place and winner of the bronze medal, Mercantile Rowing Club, represented by Redmond Matthews. And red is coached by David Colvin. In second place and winner of the silver medals, Team Hong Kong, represented by Hin Chun Chui. I'm not sure, but maybe the coach could be Chris Perry. Gold medalist and Australian champions for 2017, Canberra Rowing Club, represented by Thomas Perry. And Tom is coached by Andy Randall and Renee Domashens. Please congratulate the 2017 Australian champions and medalists.